Today is Big Podcast Friday. That is not the official term, but that is what we are talking about today. Welcome back to the Freedom Pines podcast. I'm your host, Jamie A.B. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me get my message out there because the government sure doesn't want me to have my message out there. So if that interests you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into it. So Jordan Peterson actually did a podcast about Mark Carney. He read his book, and I'm actually going to take his advice and skip to the end. This is a 20-hour book, okay? And Jordan Peterson is right. The middle of this, so boring, cannot keep up, very dull. So, and he's right. The first 3 chapters were very interesting. So I'm going to skip to the end to the last 3 chapters because I do not have time to listen to 20 hours of Mark Carney's voice. Okay, so we're going to go with that, okay? He says that that's all you need to know is like the first 3 chapters and the last 3. But something I found interesting is that Mark Carney in his book has these values, okay? And we're going to talk about what values Mark Carney has versus what Canada's values are. Yes, I have cue cards. So I'm from the 90s. I like to write things down. So Mark Carney's values are fairness and equity, resilience and adaptability, sustainability, responsibility, community, and cooperation. Now, Jordan Peterson's right. On paper, these things sound amazing. And I am going to bring a little bit of a poor person's voice to this because Jordan Peterson doesn't live in Canada. I appreciate his help completely. I don't agree with everything Jordan Peterson says, but I will say that I will tell you guys what this looks like, okay? So we got fairness and equity. AKA we're going to try to convince that all of the white men, despite not having privilege, okay? Because here's the thing. Do we live in a patriarchy or do we live in an elitist archy? A globalist archy? Because can you guys let me know and tell me what my husband benefits from having half of his paycheck taken by the government? I need to understand this privilege genuinely because even when I was on the left and they were trying to convince me I was racist, they almost had me, but I genuinely was like, no, I'm different. They're not talking about me. I'm different. You know, that's what they usually tell themselves. So what fairness and equity looks like is rooms where white people are not allowed in. Where the actual privilege lies is the, 6 families that are billionaires, and Mark Carney is ironically one of them, okay? Being bailed out by big banks, all these different things are bailing out the big banks, whatever. So that's what that looks like. Oh, and it actually looks like none of us. Equity, and it's funny because we had equity before. That's not something we didn't have because I was a single mom. And back then, I used to get a tax credit in the mail. Like, I used to get a check in the mail. And mine was definitely higher than those who were married because they knew I was a single mom. Okay? I got more money and funding because I had disabilities, because I was a single mom for when I went to college. And that was during the Harper era. Because if you work hard, they provided the tools so that I could work hard so that all of that would eventually pay off. Now, eventually the Liberals touted something was safe and effective and didn't let us get on a plane, train. We're lucky we were allowed in our automobiles without a safe and effective mandated medication. And now I can no longer do that job. So what does resilience and adaptability look like? It looks like moving 7 hours north away from your family to be able to afford to live because these people made you get a shot that they said that was going to be safe and effective. So you do a renovation on your house, realize that it's still not going to work. You can't buy a house in your area because every house you need is going to be bigger than what you have. And that's easily going to be, $700,000. So you move 7 hours north. Okay. And your husband makes more than we did combined down south, but he's taxed so much and our food costs so much that we're struggling here. Okay, that's what resilience and adaptability is, okay? Figure out how you're going to feed your family with scraps. Because I went grocery shopping this week. When I tell you, it was astronomical. And I did end up spending $900 this week. I can usually do it at $800, with 100 of that being for, or 900, 100 of it being for gas. This time I spent $900 on groceries. Thank God the gas was less, but I truly speechless. You run out of soap in Canada, you know that your next grocery run is going to be, and genuinely, I am not somebody who, hides things. I don't talk about my, finances online to an extent that you guys should know too much about me. But this is not about budgeting. I can budget. I home make everything. You think I'm paying $6, close to $6 for mini muffins? No. Do you think I'm paying $6 for 6 large muffins? No. I have started making everything on my own. And that's because I'm a stay-at-home mom, because we moved 7 hours north, because I can't work, because I can barely live my life anymore. I can't imagine living down south and how much people are struggling right now to afford things. Genuinely can't imagine. Because I know that people think that we pay so much more for food, but it's just like going to Dorchester in Southern Ontario or Belmont, those little grocery stores that are there. That's what we have up north. And then our Walmarts cost the exact same, and Food Basics cost the exact same as down south. So next thing, sustainable responsibility. What does that look like for Canadians? Like I just said, their entire purpose of the carbon tax is to literally put us into poverty so that we do not use carbon. They want us to be picky and choosy of the carbon emissions that we put out into the world. And how are they going to do that? Make carbon cost so much money that we literally can't do a thing. Okay. While at the same time, by the way, none of the emissions have gone down. In fact, everything has gone up. And every single thing that I have seen about what a smart city would end up looking like, it's not environmentally friendly. Stacking millions and millions of people on top of each other. Hello, we've seen people in China walk around with a face mask. Like, I just cannot get over. It's not like they're going to look like my community, where we do have everything that we need all in this 15-minute thing. But that's because there's 1,000 people that live here. I don't know how you guys think that you're going to, in my little area or less, fit millions of people. Don't know. Anyways, without it looking like Hunger Games, dystopian, nightmare, hellish fuel, okay? And what does community cooperation look like? That bitch over there is wearing a mask. That girl's wearing a mask. Everybody get her. Everybody get her. That's what community cooperation looks like anyways. Okay, so what are the actual... I was just letting Jordan Peterson know what those look like as an average everyday Canadian. So what Canadian values are supposed to be is individual liberty and rights. Oh, imagine wanting to conserve that when the liberals and left online are saying that Pierre is going to take away human rights. Anyways, rule of law. Oh, rule of law. Haven't people been allowed to murder people in Canada for the last 10 years? Yeah, they have. Equality and justice. My actual thing to fix Canada is people being held accountable again. Make people be held accountable again. Imagine that. And that's from the top to the bottom, baby. Okay? And responsibility and order. Do you think we can maintain responsibility and order when we invite a bunch of people over here and do not teach them what the social, political, and economic norms are in Canada? I'm just wondering. Okay. So next I'm going to talk about Pierre Poilievre's interview, which was amazing, by the way. It was really good. So up next is Pierre Poilievre and Anna Poilievre's interview that they did with Camila Gonzalez. I will link it in the show notes, but She looks like Olivia Rodrigo. This was a really, really good interview, and I suggest that everybody go and watch it. A couple of weeks ago, I got an email from the Conservative asking for campaign feedback, so I filled it out, and I'm just going to say this, that in that I said I couldn't believe how much Anna's old Instagram was relatable. It seemed like something I could have posted. And all of Canada needs to see that they are relatable. I've been watching Pierre Poilievre for 3 years now. And to be honest, he's always reminded me of Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation, because when Ben Wyatt characters introduce, he's just there to fix the government and the mess that they made because they keep spending too much. So anyway, I've always really liked Pierre and followed him closely, but not all of Canada has, and they're usually painted, Conservatives in Canada are painted as, you would honestly think that this man is, you know, himself, okay? With the way that the left talks about him. So this part I really want people to listen to. It's very, very cute. I told them to talk about being parents. I don't know, maybe other people were saying it, but I definitely know that I gave this as campaign feedback, and talk about his history. I think one of the things that I think the first thing that I said on that video that went, you know, as viral as I'm going to get about why I was voting for Pierre Poilievre was that I found it really inspiring that he was adopted when he was younger, and that he seems like he was just a regular everyday Canadian just like us, in comparison to, at the time, obviously Justin Trudeau, whose dad was the prime minister at one time. So, and I do think it's notable to add that he wants to teach his son that he's not just going to get everything for free, and that, you know, just because his dad was in this position doesn't mean that he's not going to be working hard, doesn't mean that he's not going to respect the people who do all of the, other hard work that makes this world function. And I think that was just very interesting. So let's listen to this next clip that made my heart, I just like, oh my goodness.
Cruz and Valentina join you on stage, join you on this crazy adventure. Do they understand what's happening? Do they know why there are thousands of people screaming at their parents?
No. If you have any idea.
No, they're enjoying it though. It's nice to have the family united. It's 37 days, and I think it was important for the both of us to make sure that we had that family unit. And Cruz is loving it. He's stealing Daddy's microphone.
Yeah, he literally steals the microphone.
So it's nice to have them. And there's 6. Valentina's 6. Cruz is 3. So Valentina is nonverbal, so it's hard to gauge what she really understands. And Cruz is he just thinks everybody's Daddy's friends.
Yeah, that's what he said the other day.
Papa, he says all the time.
Yeah, because we were driving past the lineup at our last rally the other day, 2 rallies ago, and he looked out the window and he said, "There's Dad's friends." And so he comes onto the stage, and he does the big walk in, and then he doesn't want to leave the stage when we get up there. So, and then he wants the microphone.
Yeah.
He loves the microphone. So pretty soon he'll be giving his own speeches.
So that clip is insanely cute. I suggest you go watch the whole thing. At first, it's them talking about their kids, their love story, their family. I think it's cute that they met in Ottawa. She was working for a senator, and Pierre Poilievre saw her walking across the street and stopped in his tracks, and he said that she took his breath away. So he definitely may have a thing for Latinas. And I don't blame him, because Anna is very pretty. But yeah, I always wondered how they met, and I guess that's how they met, because she was working for a senator. He was obviously an MP. So I know one of the biggest criticisms is that Pierre is like too pro-immigrant. Well, maybe that's because his wife's an immigrant and he has seen different things than us, because there's so many clips, like gotcha clips from the PBC being like, see, he's removing all of the red tape. He's talking about, okay, so there was this time, I guess, that there was a guy who, he didn't say this on the podcast. This is something I got from Anna's Instagram, where there was a guy and he was dying and he needed a match for a kidney, but the government wouldn't allow the family member to come over here. There was so much red tape, and Pierre basically got the guy over here and ended up, he got the surgery that he needed and his life was saved. And then another thing is that in Canada, of course, the Liberals have made everything so inept, which it amazes me that you could come over here with a PhD from another country, and I understand needing to take a test to, you know, convert it into ours and make sure that you're up to par with the, you know, Canadian standards or whatever, but it takes years. So we have all of these nurses and doctors and engineers who are Uber drivers who are working their butts off. And that's genuinely, we need more of that. I wish you would obviously talk about removing the mandates so that we could hire the old nurses and doctors back. I would have a doctor if that happened. So let's make that happen. So overall, the podcast was good. There's a couple clips going viral about what Pierre says about being Trump, that he's just passionate about helping people, and probably because, you know, they're both conservative. But anyways, the podcast is very, very good, very enlightening. I suggest you go watch it. It'll be in my bio. But next, we're going to talk about Mark Carney showing his ugly true self, okay?
About Liberal candidates' relations with China-friendly groups, and a meeting that you also held with a pro-Beijing group. So my question is, why did you meet with this pro-Beijing group, Jiangsu Commerce Council of Canada? And is the party okay with the fact that Liberal candidate Peter Yan has been so close with the Chinese consulate and China-friendly groups, given the public inquiry into foreign interference says that this is a tactic China uses to exert influence?
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but you can't believe everything you read in the Globe and Mail. So in your question, and I guess in...
So you heard that. First of all, there's photos of the event, Mark Carney. Real photos, yes. Can't believe everything you see, but here's the photos of you and those people. Which, by the way, should be blackmail on its own, because why is his face like... Why does he look like that? Anyway. Even Rachel Gilmore said that he was being sassy, because... I'm sorry, how comfortable is Mark Carney with just lying to us already? The fact that he got up there and said that that this is misinformation and that you can't always trust the Globe and Mail. There's photos, there's photos of this event. What are you talking about, Mark Carney? I do not understand what his angle is here with this. Like, he's straight up lying and there's proof of it. Imagine what guys, imagine what he is going to make Canada, okay? We are actually finding out more and more how corrupt some of these people the person who owns Egos, like the polling, is someone who has literally said out loud, I'm going to make sure that Pierre Poilievre doesn't get in. How are you going to make sure of that without cheating? What do you mean? Someone gets up, the guy who's the co-leader of the Green Party. Co-leader of the Green Party? You need a co-leader? There's two of you. On CBC yesterday, and said, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Pierre Poilievre doesn't get up there. Why are you allowed to say that? How is that not election interference? Where are your ethics? Is there someone else on the stage saying, okay, well, I'm going to do everything that make sure Mark Carney doesn't get in? How is that fair? In the slightest. Anyways, that's your updates for today. I hope you guys had a great week. We are almost done with week 3, 4. I've lost all knowledge of what sense of time and place it is, because this election is just every day. You guys, I report on things. I leave the computer. I'm like, there's 3 more things I could have added to that video. I just have these like cue cards walking around, so I write stuff down. So anyways, guys, that was your big podcast Friday. How did you guys like it? Let me know in the comments, and thank you guys so much for being here. If you're still here, leave a Canadian flag in the comments, and I hope you guys had a great week. Bye!